Greetings once again, YouTube. Back with another Guns of the Old West review. This time we're going to look at the Schofield again. This time it's a different version from Taylor's & Company. It's the case hardened and charcoal blued version, and also in 7-inch. So let's get to it. You all may remember from, I don't know, a few months ago or however long it's been, I don't even remember. I took a look at this one. This is the 5-inch, not quite the Western Union version, but we took a look at that one, talked a lot about the history of the Schofield and all that kind of stuff. This one, color-wise, this is blued. I know it's a little dirty, but it's blued with some case-hardened accents on it, and this is kind of how it really was back when they were produced. This one is the Taylor & Company version. I don't know if I can get the light right so you can actually see the case hardened. Now this would normally be blue, but in this case it's all case hardened, and this is fire blued, actually, is what they call it. So it's a real brilliant dark blue. It's kind of hard at the light, but yeah, it's really pretty. And they released this one I think this year, just as something a little different. And I saw that and I was like, ooh, I really like that. So I wanted a 7-inch Schofield to complement that little guy. So when this one was released and I finally found one, I was like, all right, I'll do that. I liked this one so much that this was not much of a jump to go ahead and get that. So let's talk about this one. And this one is, again, a Uberti replica. This is imported by Taylor & Company. And again, it's not historically accurate because this wouldn't have been all case color hardened, and this wouldn't have been fire blue. It would have looked like that. But everything else is pretty on the money. So we'll talk about it. I know I talked a lot about the history in the last video, and if you haven't seen that, I'll kind of touch on it again. So real quick, this is a Smith & Wesson, or reproduction of a Smith & Wesson Model 3. And the Model 3 is just this large caliber frame size. They offered it in many calibers, 44 Winchester centerfire, and the Schofield specifically was chambered in 45 Schofield or 45 Smith & Wesson, which is a little different than the 45 Colt that this one is chambered in. This one actually didn't come in 45 Colt because they didn't want to chamber their gun for whatever reason, Sony Betamax, for a competitor's cartridge. So they didn't. And I think that's ultimately what cost them the big contract that Colt ended up getting. But I digress. So back in the day, back in the early 1870s, Major Schofield, who was a cavalry officer, loved the Smith & Wesson Model 3, but what he didn't like about it was on the original that had this break open here. This is a top break revolver, broke up, and then the thing opened. He said that was a two-handed operation, and so he redesigned the latch so that the latch is actually frame mounted instead of barrel mounted, so that it comes back, man. Hold on. Comes back like that. So it can be done one-handed on horseback. You flip it against your leg, the cartridges are ejected, and then you can switch the gun to your reins hand and reload it from your ammo pouch. So it's meant to be done while on the move. That's his major improvement. The second model Schofield, which is what this is, had this scooped thumb hold on that latch, so they scooped this out, and the frame, which is all of this, was made of steel instead of iron, which is harder. So one of the biggest drawbacks to this design, being that it's hinged here and just held with a latch here, is that, and the fact that also, if you watch my other video, you'll see the internals of it, it's a much more complicated firearm to make and maintain than the Colt. Colts are very simple. These were not as durable, so they say. So there was a lot of skepticism from the military brass that this wouldn't hold up. So they did buy some. They bought about 5,000 or so and issued them to cavalry troops. And then, of course, they had to supply the ammo, so they would have 2 different 45 caliber rounds. They would have the 45 Colts, which would go to the units that carried the single action army, and the 45 Schofield that would go to the troops carrying the Schofield. Problem is, with the efficiency of government being what it is, sometimes the troops got the wrong crates. So the guys who carried the Colt would get a crate of Schofield ammo, which would work. It was shorter. It would work in the Colt, but the opposite was not true. The Colt round being longer would not fit in the chamber of the Schofield. So I think what was finally the death knell for this design was the fact that a whole unit of troops needed ammo. They got a crate of ammo for Colt, and they all had Schofields, and that was that. So this gun was then sent to surplus for distribution to the public, cut down, etc., like that one. So brief history there. This again is a replica. It is made by Uberti in Italy. It is the second model. This one is supposedly made to look like it was manufactured in 1877, and it's labeled there on the grip, which is when it would have been inspected. This is historically accurate. They did stamp the handles according to everything that I was able to read and look up. The cartouche is David A. Lyle, who's a lieutenant, who was the, I guess, the senior armorer at the time, who would inspect all of these and make sure they were fit. And that's the cartouche on that side. And like my other one, this one also has a cartouche on this side. And this is a CW, and it stands for Charles Woodman, who is the sub-inspector. And just look at that blue, man. It's gorgeous. That case hardening. And the bleeding, too. I really like this thing. So that's the real quick dirty on the history of the Schofield. They didn't last too long, again, because of the ammo thing. And I think also because Major Schofield had invented this and patented this. They owed him money for every unit that was sold. And I think they were tired of paying it. So when they came back out with the number 3 American after this, they went back to the top break with the frame or with the barrel mounted latch, and a little bit different back here. It had a little raised area here, which actually I think would be better for stability wise than this design. So that was that, but it was no longer issued to the Army. Now a lot of people in the Old West, both good and bad guys, carried this. Jesse James had one, and Wyatt Earp was said to carry one at the OK Corral gunfight. Now, I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure. I just know what I've read. So take that for what it is. But this was immensely popular in the Old West for one specific reason. The Colt Single Action Army was a pain in the butt to load and unload. It's not hard, it's just time consuming because it's one round at a time. This one is not. Go back to half cock, pull this back, and boom. It is open. The rounds are thrown out of it. You can reload it very easily, and then you're back in the fight. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy. It was design-wise, this thing is way ahead of its time. And actually, the Model 3, I think, came out in like the 1870, which was 3 years before Colt, because Smith & Wesson had bought the patent for the bored-through cylinder. So they were allowed to make these way before Colt and Remington and other gun manufacturers were allowed to, because of patents. So the patent expired in 1873. Actually 72. Colt had an intermediate gun between their 1860 Army and the 1873 Single Action Army. It was basically, that's a whole nother video. Anyway, So yeah, so this was actually out in a version similar to this, minus this and a little bit different shape back here, before the Colt Single Action Army ever came to be. And it shot a rimfire cartridge, which was the 44 American. So yeah. All right, just gonna take another look. Walnut grips, beautiful bluing, or the case hardening, I'm sorry. This fire bluing is beautiful. The markings on this gun are similar to the 5-inch that I previously did. Shows the, you know, the Maltese crosses on each side with the Schofield patents. This was accurate. That is where it would have been. The 45 Colt obviously is not what this gun was ever chambered in, and nor would they have put the caliber on it. From what everything I've read is they were unmarked as far as caliber. They just, Schofields were 45 Schofield. On the other side, this one is marked Taylor & Company, Winchester, Virginia, A. Uberti, Italy. This would not be there, obviously, because it was, there was no Taylor & Company, Winchester, Virginia back then. It would have been Smith & Wesson or something, whatever. Yeah. And then more detail work on that. I mean, it's pretty. It's a really pretty gun. All right. We're going to go. I want to talk about one thing before I go into loading and unloading it. Is I thought with this being case colored that it would look good with some ivory grips. And I bought some, and I'm not sure that I like them, but I'll throw in some posters. Anyway, these are the grips I've used before for other guns are made by Arizona Custom Grips. There's nothing wrong with these. I'm just not sure I like the ivory over the walnut. But I'll roll in some pictures here and show you right now. So here it is with the ivory grips installed from Arizona Custom Grips. I like them. I just think it would probably look better if the gun was actually nickel instead of this color that it is. All right, loading and unloading this thing. Again, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Go to half cock, pull the latch down, and it pops open. You'll see the ejector pops up and then goes in. Once it goes in, you can load. So I have these god-awful Tipton snap caps. I can't find my other ones. I don't know what to do with them. To make some more, I guess. So again, this is a single action with no safety, so you're going to have to load it and then leave this chamber, which would be at your 11 o'clock position. Leave that open. Close the cylinder. Go to full cock, and then lay it down. And then when you do that, I don't know if you can actually see or not, but you can see that that cylinder now is open, and this gun can be safely carried with the hammer down. To fire it, obviously it's single action, so every pull of the hammer, which pulls back pretty easy, boom. It doesn't like these snap caps. I think the case rim is too thick on these. I don't know what it is, but normally this thing cycles just fine, but then now we're back on the empty, so I'm gonna not fire it. To unload it, half cock, pull that back, and it spits them out. Much greater advantage, especially when you're up against guys carrying the Colt. You get 5, maybe 6 shots, depending on how you load it. And yeah, you can be back in the fight really fast versus one at a time. So reload and unload time on this is much faster. So that is the mechanism of the Schofield, or the Model 3s in general, because there were several different versions of the Model 3. There was the Russian, the American, and all that stuff. But they function the same. But anyway, the reason I'm doing this video, not necessarily because I have not done a Schofield video. I want to do a video because I like this particular color scheme. And I know this video does not do it justice, but this is an absolutely beautiful gun. So anyway, they're not cheap. You can get 2 Colt single action clones from Uberti for roughly what one of these costs. So that's something you have to decide if you want. Me personally, I kind of like them. And so much so that I actually carry these. I'm going to roll into a picture carrying both of these guns. Kind of funny. But anyway, so yeah, I appreciate you watching. I know this video is kind of running long, especially since I've already done one on the Schofield. But I like this. I think Taylor's really hit it out of the park with this color combo. Even though it's not historically accurate, it is really, really nice looking. All right, well, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good night.